If you guys are talking, I can't hear you.
Can you hear us now?
One more. Can you hear us now?
I can barely hear you, Stacy. You're like really far away.
And you cannot hear me?
Oh, there you are. Do you want to
Okay.
say something again?
Okay, you're good?
Yep.
All right, welcome everybody. It's 11:30. We'll get started with the pre-commission agenda. We are holding the meeting today in the commission boardroom, which is right next to the auditorium. So that's why the setup looks a little different. No president's report from me. Are there any general housekeeping items or discussion from the commission on the agenda?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
I do have a couple of questions about number 3 on the consent agenda. This is Deer Flat Road and K Street intersection project. I'm just wondering if the director or someone can give us kind of a general overview of the project and what's the general scope of that project.
And
Commissioner Nelson.
was piggyback, just curious how we've worked with CUNA School District regarding the pedestrian improvements. It's adjacent to CUNA High School.
Excellent. Madam President, Commission, that project is a long-standing priority project. It's currently number 3 on this school district's list. K is immediately adjacent to CUNA High School. And this is just beginning the design, so we haven't worked out all the details in terms of all the changes or modifications there. But this is a mid-mile collector project. We're looking at a roundabout at that location, but we'll explore all options. And through the design process, we would design the improvement there. There's some challenges with the egress and ingress in and around the school at that location. There are a lot of schools really close to each other in that area, and this would help improve and address that. We do have already in that area a number of pedestrian crossings across Deer Flat as well that we've worked on with the school in the past, but just to answer that question. Does that answer?
So it's primarily then to put in a roundabout to replace the current intersection and then things adjacent and pertinent to that.
Correct. And, Deer Flat would be built up with its long-range plan associated with the intersection. So I think it's planned for 5 lanes in the long term, and so it would be addressed.
But in this project, we're not doing any substantial length of Deer Flat itself. We're simply doing the intersection.
That is my understanding. That's correct.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
The Deer Flat projects itself will come after the intersection is done.
Okay. Any other questions about the agenda or comments about the agenda? All right, seeing none, over to you, Director, for the director's report.
Wonderful. Commissioners, thank you. It's so nice to have you here. That's the right phrase, right? It's so nice to have you here. I'll explain that here in a second. But we're so grateful to be able to visit with you today. Have a few guests, have a few things to go over. And then at the end, we'd ask you, we have our name a plow winners who are here for a photo, and they'd love to have a photo with you out by the plows with the winner there. So we'll jump right into this. First, we wanted to welcome our newest and returning employees here at the Highway District. We are so happy to have Mr. Rader come back as a senior project manager. It's an area where we really needed that experience and expertise to have a lot of big projects going on, and so we're grateful to have him back. Also, Curtis is one of our zone inspectors. Curtis has his PE, which is not a skill we've had or a level of certification we've had in our zone inspectors for a time, and so we're grateful for Curtis and what he brings to the table here. So welcome.
Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So well, welcome Curtis. Welcome back, Dave. But is the zone inspector, is that the work zone inspections? If you could clarify that, that'd be great.
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, The zone inspector, they have a specific area of the county that they're responsible for all the permits that are issued to utilities, to and anyone working within the right of way. That's as opposed to our sub-inspectors who review subdivisions and new roads, or our fiber inspectors who are looking at the fiber, or our project inspectors that look at our projects. So they're looking at other people's projects within a specific zone.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, just a few things to go over today. First of all, we have today Scott Swanson, the executive director, and Roy Lujan, administrative assistant for the YMCA. As we mentioned last week, our chili cook-off was a fundraiser. And so we have a check for them. We were able to raise $600 just from employees. And then that is going to be matched by Matt Cobain, who's going to also do 6,000. So we will have 1,200, 600. Sorry. Just wanted to invite Scott up to we'll give him the check. Okay, here, there he goes. Scott, thank you for being here.
This morning to match it, so perfect. It's all taken care of. So
well, we're grateful for the partnership. You've been a great partner with us in terms of our wellness program and health, and we're grateful for what you do in the community.
we're so happy to be neighbors now with you guys, especially over at the West Side. This will literally send 50+ kids through programs like swim lessons and give them those life-saving skills. So thank you to all who helped donate to this.
Thank you so much. Yesterday, we had a all-staff kind of kickoff to the year. We invited Rhonda Conger to come speak to the team about thriving through change. Rhonda is a spicy lady, we'll say. I think she would describe herself that way. But then Rhonda speaks nationwide, giving motivational speakers. She is the vice president of CBH Homes. So a local individual, but did a wonderful job helping us as a team kind of talk through how do you handle change. And we've dealt with some change. We continue to deal with some change, and we're grateful for that. Rhonda not only donated her time and her team's time to come speak to us, but she also brought in the audio visual and paid for that too. So it was a kind effort. She was so excited to come speak to the ACHD team and share her thoughts and to help us as we continue to go. She says that the statement earlier, she encouraged us instead of saying, "How are you doing?" to say, "Tell me something good," and to always tell people, "We're so happy you're here." So just a few of the things that we learned yesterday. Last week, and one of the fun things that I get to do as the director is I sit down with each of the crews throughout once a year to kind of talk through what's going on with them. This was our second time with the vegetation crew. And one of the exciting things about this is the first time they shared with us some thoughts and concerns that they had about how things are going. And this time they were very happy about how those things have been addressed. And that's really the goal of these meetings, is to hear and address the concerns to make things better for them. But in that conversation, I learned a few things that I just wanted to share with the commission. And I do have a recommendation associated with that. So this crew is made up of 10 individuals. We have a crew chief who oversees and does all the inspections and reviews. Lead worker is providing guidance there. There are 4 individuals on that crew who provide support to the sheriff's labor inmate detail. And they provide security and oversight, and working with them, they do weed abatement, graffiti removal, trash cleanup, etc. It's a really great program for the volunteers to be able to have an opportunity to participate. For ACHD, we received, I think the number was 248 man hours last week alone, just from those volunteers who are participating with our crew. So we get a lot of support from them, from a security and or from a weed abatement and graffiti, kind of the beautification type of activities. Which leaves really 4 individuals who are focused on site obstructions, emergency response, tree removal, trimming, weed spraying and removal, like from the more dangerous areas, like in the medians, as well as our environmental compliance for basin management. One statistic that I heard in the conversation that concerned me is as we get concerns from the public, could be a site obstruction, a sign being blocked. Our response time right now is about 30 to 60 days. That, from my perspective, is not acceptable. As we receive concerns, immediately as a highway district, we have a responsibility to take care of those, and our ability to do that is limited by the staffing. And so I am recommending that we, I'm seeking authorization to move forward with adding 4 FTEs to that group. This time, looking at the budget, we believe that there's definitely been some savings from how the weather has responded. I'm knocking on wood before saying that. And there's been some savings there. There's also been some savings from some open positions there that we think that we can manage this within the budget and the budget that's already approved, but we'll be looking at that through the budget adjustment. So pending, unless there's serious concerns about that, I think that that's something that we need to move forward with as a highway district this time.
Commissioner Nielsen.
Yeah, Ryan, I would presume that those FTEs, if needed, could work on other things in maintenance too. So it wouldn't just be vegetation if there's seasonal issues or what have you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, absolutely. They participate and assist with the winter ops. They also help manage some of work with the silt crew, etc., on some of the high priority sidewalks when there's snow events. We actually, as part of our chip seal program, we do a survey of all the trees that would need to be trimmed as part of what's the next zone. In the upcoming zone, and I'm the exact numbers blanking me, but it's in the tens of thousands of trees that higher than any number we've ever seen that are going to need to be trimmed for this upcoming year. Now we contract a lot of that out, but if this work was with these crews, they can be more proactive in addressing some of these things, which would reduce costs down the road on that side of things. It's interesting when you talk about a vegetation crew for a road department where we're not doing landscaping, we're not doing any beautification. Their job is simply to manage the safety and the compliance requirements, and we're grateful for what they're able to do. So, pending.
Madam President. Oh,
Commissioner Pickering, and then I'll. Go ahead, Commissioner.
okay, thank you. Sorry, it's hard to see everyone. I would just say, quick, and you probably alluded to this, Ryan, and this probably answers some of the question from what you just said. But, you know, I've been tracking just some of the positive comments from folks about our vegetation crew. Like they're one of the most, you know, folks really love to lay praise on them because of that response time. So I agree, like this increase in responsiveness is a concern. What, like, aside from, like, what would you say is contributing to that response time increase? Is it truly just manpower? Are we just getting more requests? Are they more complicated requests? Could you kind of distill that a little bit more for me? So that's my first question. And then my second question is, I've noticed that there are consistent yearly requests around goat head removal, specifically at the Cloverdale yard. So, and I know that it's tricky, right? Because we're not responsible. We're not the only organization. And it's just weird, right? It's just it's a nuisance. It's noxious weed. So I'd be curious to hear more if today's not the right time, just how we can do a really good job of eradicating goat heads around our yard in particular, because that is our specific jurisdiction. And then I would just echo, I fully support the addition because this is a liability, right? If we can't respond quick enough to a problem where folks can't see a speed limit or they can't respond to a certain thing that's in the roadway, that is a huge safety concern. So I would support it, but could you kind of elaborate on those first two questions, Ryan?
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, addressing your second question first in terms of weed abatement. Right now on the crew, we have one individual who's certified for spraying. One of the things that we're working on is creating opportunities and greater interest in getting more people certified, creating some senior level positions in there that would allow people to have greater oversight and also have that certification. So that's one item that we're working on, which would help with manage that challenge that we have. I think part of the challenge we have is the number of basins that we have to maintain continues to grow. We do that. We have good technology in terms of mowing those, but it's substantial, the number of basins that continue to grow. And ultimately, as the county continues to grow, trees continue to grow, things that, it is a problem that never goes away, right? You may trim a tree, but it'll come back, right? And so we do see those things that continue to be a challenge as the county grows. It is a small crew, and I think that's part of what surprised me. As we try to take care of things as quickly as we can. If we can get there sooner, we do. If we have people in the area, they'll definitely stop and address any concerns that they can see. But I think just with the growth of the county, with the growth of the projects and the demands on this crew, I think that's where you're seeing that. One of the things that we were able to address earlier from our first meeting was a lot of concerns related to the new homeless encampment bill and ACHD's responsibility around that. We're finding that we were getting a lot of calls from the police for us to clean that up. We've addressed that with the police, and they now handle that through contracting, and our crews aren't seeing that same issue. So we've been trying to minimize things that pull them away from the actual work that they are responsible for doing. And so we're managing that, but this is ultimately where we're at today.
Commissioner McKinney?
Yeah, Director, so I want to put the 4 full-time employees that you're talking about, I want to put that into context. Do we have one crew with 1 crew chief, 1 lead worker, and 4 workers, or are these figures on the slide not representative? Is that the actual manpower that we have right now?
We currently have 10 total people on the crew. So this would give us 14 total people if we were to add these 4 FTEs.
Okay.
4 of them are responsible for the SILD support, and they work directly with those inmates, the volunteers who are out doing kind of that weed abatement, graffiti, trash cleanup, that side of things. They also pick up the Adopt a Highway and any of those types of activities. The remaining 4, and there's some crossover depending on the number of volunteers we get for SILD, and we've seen somewhat of a decrease too in that, and the number of people available, which is actually a good thing. Like but from our perspective, it's less people working. And so really you're down to that 4, maybe 5, 6 people who are able to go and address these other concerns.
So that 30 to 60 day time figure, is that continuing to increase, or is it kind of just sitting there at that range?
It's
Relatively stagnant.
It's relatively stagnant. We're getting about 15 new requests a week.
Okay.
And so their ability to manage that and to get there, is limited by how many new requests we're getting each week.
It makes me wonder if it wouldn't be more prudent to add 2 and see how that affects the workload and the delay, instead of jumping, with a 40% increase in personnel seems a big jump when perhaps just increasing by 2 might be sufficient. I don't know. That's my thoughts on this.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yeah, I remember many years ago, I think the city of Boise Parks Department evaluated their vegetation management costs. And it kind of opened my eyes to, as for example, that's when you saw hardscape on the medians and Park Center, things that they have been managing. And apart from the work to be done, that type of work is inherently hazardous. And you need to send multiple people out for it to be a safe operation. So 4 to me seems like that's a good start. Because then you might, I don't know how often you send out a single person. I would think that would be really rare, so I would think you could deal with more with 4 than 2. I don't know that 2 would really help cut the backlog of projects, but that's just my perspective, understanding the nature of what they need to do and how many people it takes just for one issue, so.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, I get a number of phone calls, emails, texts from folks in my district that are concerned about this being addressed. Not what we're talking about today, but mostly things on their commute. And I've myself made phone calls and emails and forwarded a lot of stuff to Ryan. And I think this is one of the more significant, but maybe not watched as often as other things, but a significant thing to contribute to safety. You have people that go way almost into the other road, way across the crosswalks and everything else to see if it's safe to go into make a right or left, just because of these site obstructions. And as far as I'm concerned, most of the HOAs and neighbors on corners and stuff that have these responsibilities don't take them very seriously. Unfortunately, we need to, because like you mentioned, we're the ones that get the fingers pointed at.
Yeah, and I'll just add, like, in terms of safety and liability, I think that it's important, I'll just echo all those comments commissioners have made, that it's important that we have crews that are available to address those things, and trust the insight of the team and you in providing that recommendation to the commission.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioner McKinney, just to maybe give you some perspective, talking to the team, their thought is that long-term, they would need up to 8 total people. And so we're only going a portion of that at this point in time. And if there's need to manage that, part of that is for that purpose, is so that we can see how this has an impact and how we're able to address these things. And they do go roughly in 2 at a minimum, depending on just from a safety perspective. We just wanted to we shared at our meeting yesterday with the team, and I've heard a lot of positive feedback from the team. This is our 2025 year in review. This is what we'll share with the community. We chose, recognizing that people don't read a lot, that we kind of did a virtual a video news or kind of summary of the year that we can share.
2025 is in the rear view, and what a year it was. In fiscal year 2025, ACHD worked hard to build community, improve efficiencies, enhance safety, and connect you to more. ACHD advanced critical transportation projects that will serve Ada County for years to come. 13 project designs were completed, setting the stage for future construction and long-term improvements. Notable construction projects included Eagle and State Street, State and Pierce Park, Eagle Lake Hazel to Amity, U-Stick Black Hat to 10 Mile, the award-winning Eckert Bridge repair, Phase 1 of Linder and Overland, multiple pavement preservation projects, pedestrian safety improvements including RRFBs and PHBs, and 18 drainage projects. Together, these investments added connectivity, resilience, and safety across the network. Keeping our road system running smoothly remained a top priority. Operation crews chip-sealed over 300 lane miles, helping raise ACHD's pavement condition index to 78, outperforming many agencies across the Northwest. Crews filled a record-breaking over 13,000 potholes, painted, or refreshed more than 2,600 miles of roadway striping and installed over 7,000 new signs to support clear and confident travel. Through coordinated maintenance, efficient fleet management, and integrated deployment, ACHD's operations save taxpayers up to $25 million annually. To support this work, ACHD added 15 new vehicles to the fleet, helping crews cover more ground and get more done every day. ACHD completed construction of a state-of-the-art traffic operations center, supporting real-time monitoring and smarter roadway management. Safety improvements continued countywide. We deployed 135 new traffic signal controllers, installed 5 new leading pedestrian intervals, bringing the countywide total to 66, and completed traffic calming on 11 neighborhood streets. Our safety engineering team delivered 32 rapid improvement projects, improving intersections, school routes, and community roadways. Decisions were guided by data collected from more than 1,000 traffic count and study locations. Growth in Ada County continued at a strong pace. ACHD processed 648 development applications, with an average review time of just 23 days. Nearly 1,000 construction plans were reviewed, 586 were approved, and almost 4,000 permits were issued to support construction and special events. We also collected nearly $33 million in impact fees, helping growth pay for growth. ACHD once again passed all financial audits. This year also included the transition into our renovated Meeker headquarters, supporting day-to-day operations across ACHD. ACHD strengthened operations through transparency and accountability, responding to 427 public record requests. Subject matter experts engaged with local media 62 times, contributing to more than 200 stories that kept the public informed. We also launched ACHD Connect, a new customer service portal that makes it easier for residents to get updates, report issues, and receive answers. ACHD helped remove over 3 million miles and more than 1 million vehicle trips from Ada County roads through van pooling and smart commuting. We are proud to earn designation as a Gold Bicycle-Friendly Community, recognizing major progress in making Ada County a better place to bike. ACHD also continued outreach through safety campaigns focused on visibility, distracted driving, and stopping on red, reinforcing shared responsibility on our roadways. Together, these efforts reflect ACHD's commitment to delivering results today while preparing Ada County for the future.
Commissioners, that was all produced by our communications team, but the work is done by all of ACHD, and so grateful for a committed team who works hard to get this work done. And we'll make sure that that gets shared broadly. Just review quickly the upcoming agenda topics. The only new item on this, ITD has requested to come visit with the commission and provide an update on State Highway 16 projects. So that will be scheduled as a work session next month. Just a quick overview of other items. There's a few TOC tours that are in the works, both this week and next. You'll also hear about the 5-year plan today, and you'll see and that will kick off with the public tomorrow. We do just want to recognize today our winners for our Name a Plow contest. We do have a gift card for for Bruce Stevenson, who is here. Joey wasn't able to make it today. He was called out on other things. We also have the plows out front. And so after we award this to Bruce, we'd love to have the commission go out and take a quick picture. I know we're short on time, but if we can go take a quick picture with the winner and the plows, that would be fantastic. And so Bruce, if you can come up. Hello. Such a great name. Taylor's one.
So,
Thank you so much. So if we can quickly go take a photo, we'll get a flag installed in the meantime.
Thing for a little.
Stacy, is this will just be transferred over, right, when folks move to the dais?
We are going to stay in this room for the entire meeting today.
Oh, for the entire meeting. Got it. Okay.
Yes. Angel, will you?
Yeah.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's 12:04. Go ahead and call the commission meeting to order. And welcome everybody joining us in person and online today. And if you will join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next up is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are considered commission action items unless noted. I don't believe we have any requests to remove any consent agenda items. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
there's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That moves us to the regular agenda. We do not have any items on the regular agenda today. So next up would be public communications under discussion items. Anybody in person or online who wish to speak to the commission?
We have Kathy Hood that is signed up.
Okay, Kathy, just ask that you come and have a seat at the table and then you'll have 3 minutes to provide your.
Timed it, so I think we're good.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, commission members. For the record, my name is Kathy Hudd. I'm out of Seattle and I'm here today representing Crown Castle. While Crown Castle is not a name you may recognize, we are the largest shared infrastructure provider in the country. Crown Castle operates and manages a network of fiber, small cells, and macro cell towers. We share network capacity with our carrier customers, along with anyone else who has a need for connectivity. Here in Idaho, we manage 235 macro towers across the state, and we are currently working with Healey, which is a fiber provider here in the Northwest, to bring fiber to the home solutions to Boise and the surrounding markets. You're going to hear a briefing today during work session about different fiber deployment methods. Crown Castle is one of the companies that has proposed an alternative method of placing fiber in ACHD right-of-way, which we affectionately call Rapid Connect. Currently, your policies require all utilities to be located a minimum of 30 inches deep, including fiber. In fact, the reason Rapid Connect was developed is because we believe that a trench that is roughly 2 feet wide by 2.5 feet deep is disproportionately large for something that is this big. And this is a strand of fiber. It holds 144 counts of fiber. Rapid Connect places fiber in a notch at the top of the road surface, which is 3/8 inch wide and about 1 to 1.5 inches deep. It's safer than a traditional trench because there is no risk of a utility strike, and it is significantly faster than traditional trenching as well. There are less spoils coming out of the grounds. We believe it is more environmentally friendly. And most importantly for you, it's low impact. We don't have to close the whole street during construction, and we don't disrupt the subgrade of the roadway, further adding to the longevity of the roads. The goal of this methodology is to build fiber quickly and safely with minimal impact to the road itself or the surrounding neighborhood. We believe Rapid Connect accomplishes these goals. I know your focus is to protect and manage the roads, but if you value connectivity and you want fiber to the home options, then this will expedite that capability. My colleague Sean Gutierrez and I will be here for the briefing later. So if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for the opportunity and to speak, and we look forward to the discussion. And if you guys want to keep this, happy to leave it. Otherwise, I'll have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak to the commission? All right, seeing none, then the meeting is adjourned and we'll move on to the post-commission agenda. We've got 2 work sessions. First up is the 2027 to 2031 5-year plan kickoff presentation by Evan. Welcome.
Thank you, Commission, for having us. And we're excited to kick off the 2027-2031 5-year plan. My name is Evan Bautista, ACHD Senior Transportation Planner. joining us today, we have Rebecca Phillips, Transportation Planner. Both of us will be leading this year's update of the 5-year plan, 2020-2031. We're very excited for this opportunity, and we're looking forward to meet the commission standards for the 5-year plan as well, following Director Head and Christine Sumek, who now in Ada County. The purpose of today's work session is to kick off the development of the 2027-2031 5-year plan. This includes a brief overview of the programming framework, public partner agencies, public outreach, the plan development schedule, and some early programming objectives moving into this update. We will be going over all the key dates to be aware of as this year-long effort moves forward. On this slide, we wanted to provide a snapshot of our typical process for the development of the 5-year plan. In this slide, we present the major tasks involved, including the initial programming side, the public outreach, the prioritization, and commission presentations throughout this process. Just as a reminder, Commission, the 5-year plan is a tool that integrates the construction and maintenance programs into one document. It implements a long-range plans, including the neighborhood plans, the capital improvement plan, the bicycle master plan, and so on. It's an outward-facing document that informs the public and partner agency what our current and future plans are. It creates the necessary layer of transparency for our plan activities. It is a vital tool to help us coordinate both internally and externally. The development of the 5-year plan is carefully constructed with an array of guiding documents and supportive efforts. This all starts with the cities and counties' development of their comprehensive plans, which establish the land use visions for their areas. This is later informs the information that's used by Compass through their demographic projection and travel demand model, which goes into our strategic plan for asset management and resource allocation. All these efforts in combination results into our strategies for asset management plan, ADA plan, bike master plan, neighborhood plans, and capital improvement plan, and create the foundation in which the 5-year plan is developed. Staff wants to highlight the early programming objectives identified for this year's update. Starting with the first 2 years, for 2027-2028, we will continue to develop those years with a balanced budget and in coordination with the FY 27-28 budget. Consistent with last year, we'll continue to work closely with our partner agency to focus on their top ranked project, and as these projects move towards construction, accelerate the projects following their priority list. A theme we want to highlight this year is ACHG continual effort to fully fund our asset management program, including capital maintenance program, the bridge program, and ADA related programs such as Safe Sidewalk and Ramp. One key aspect to stay informed of is the sunsetting of the vehicle registration fee in 2028. At this moment, we'll continue to assume that the program will continue to move forward beyond 2028. This year, we'll also update our capital investment program with the recently adopted 2025 Impact Fee and Capital Improvement Plan. As part of this update, we're planning to come back in front of the commission to provide an update regarding its implementation and also our strategy to implement impact fees into the later years of the plan. With that, Commission, we also want to give an opportunity for the commissioners to voice any areas of concerns, any additional areas that you would like staff to focus on this year through this update. And I will pause here for a second to give this decision.
Commissioner Goldberg?
Yeah, I know it's only preliminary, but I've heard way more than I care to from people who either work for Micron, work on the Micron site, or live around Micron about what the future is for that area and the Highway 21 connection that would help to alleviate a whole lot of the congestion that we already see. And it's not on our 5-year plan. We don't have to have it budgeted fully. We don't have to have a construction date. But in order for us to expedite in any way, shape, or form legally, that particular project, it needs to be on the 5-year plan. So I would suggest we get it there, at least for with the design coming soon.
Well, if I may,
Commissioner McKinney?
yes, there are multiple projects that I think are affected by the Micron expansion and that fall into that category. So, some of them are, things that we're currently talking about or places that need to be improved, and others are just new things that, infrastructure that doesn't exist at all today and really needs to be put in place, for that, or at least, needs to be on our radar in any event.
Commissioner Nelson?
I appreciate the other commissioners looking out for my district. Another major project in District 1, which you'll get sick of listening to me, is Lake Hazel. So I'd want to at least get quickly give you an update from Boise City on the results of their current study. I don't know if it's ready yet, but I want that to inform the 5-year plan as well. If there's any recommendations to start on any work.
Are they going to prioritize it?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Madam President, Commissioner, we met with their leadership last week, and they indicated they'll have a work session to talk about some of those things later this month. So we anticipate, based on that conversation, that it should be prioritized and it'll be on the list at least.
So next week? Later this month?
I believe so. I think they said before the end of the month. I don't remember the exact date.
Commissioner Nelson?
And just the other priority, I was at Barber Valley Neighborhood Association last week, and it's just another report back of folks who feel that there might be a need to take a more holistic review of the school zones, with the walk it, bike it maps, and work in partnership with the school districts around the county. In that case last week, they felt that 2 of the elementary schools, the school zone areas, were too short, and having looked at a lot of those maps and knowing really the lack of resources maybe at some of the school districts to consistently keep those updated or have an engineering review of those, I'd like to maybe identify a strategy for what that partnership could look like. So.
President, Commissioner Nelson, our rapid project team is a task that they are taking on, but I think maybe we can look at, is there a way to provide some transparency about that through the 5-year plan?
And then I presume that commission can continue to think on this and give Evanston feedback as that goes out for its first round of public engagement as well.
With that, Commission, we want to jump to the partner agency and public outreach effort for this year. Early in January, we kicked off this year's update with our partner agency outreach with a letter sent to the city officials, city, county, and key stakeholder officials, informing them about the update and sharing key dates and milestones throughout the process. At the same time, we started coordinating at a staff level, one-on-one meetings to discuss what this year looks like, goals and objectives, key milestones, and address any questions or concerns regarding this update. Consistent with previous years, we're encouraging agencies to submit their project priorities by mid-March, but we're working with each agency if they require additional time to submit their letters. Concurrently with this partner outreach, we are holding the first public outreach for the 27-21 5-year plan, where we're collecting initial feedback from the community with respect to projects programmed in the 5-year plan, projects listed beyond 2030, and giving the opportunity to submit new ideas for new projects. This outreach will open for 4 weeks, starting January 22nd, which is tomorrow, until February 19th. I would also add that any feedback we receive from the public outreach will be shared with the cities after the closing of that February 19th date. In this slide, we just wanted to share, Commission, a screenshot of what the tool looks like for this year's update. As you can see, for this tool, we focus with the currently adopted 5-year plan, this showcasing what projects are currently programmed. And also we have a tab for the Beyond 2030 for any project outside the 5-year range that has been identified from our partner agencies, the Public Neighborhood Plan, CIP, Bike Master Plan. It's a very comprehensive list. As part of this tool, the public will be able to click on a project where they're going to be able to see all the information related to the project and a link to a survey where it will connect to for them to provide us feedback with respect to how important this project is. Also share any feedback they would like to share with the commission or the partner agency. And also on the top right, they will have an opportunity to provide those ideas for new projects. As part of this, in our engage page, we'll have a ADA accessible survey with a table displaying all the projects that are currently in the map for anyone from the public who does not want to, their preference is not use a map, but a table or a PDF. They're more than welcome to access the list through that survey.
Commissioner McKinney.
Edmondson, is there anything in the information that we're giving to the public along with, the outreach here through this page, anything that shows information regarding congestion throughout the county? Where do we have the biggest congestion problems? And so that people can look at that and compare that to where we're building things. Do we have anything like that?
At this point, we don't have a explicit tool display as part of this page at this moment, display showing the level of congestion throughout the county. But if it's something the commission wants to see, it's something we can.
What would it take? Because I imagine we have such a thing that we use. It would seem perhaps we could get that so that the public can view it as well.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, historically, especially and prior to going this route where it's as we were gathering as much public input, we used to provide to each of the cities a level of service map, which showed the areas that were not meeting our thresholds where we saw that congestion. And so I think that assume that that's still being updated and managed, and it could be provided to the public as a tool.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
I feel like the benefit of and the level of feedback that we get through this new tool for public engagement is that we get really good perspective from people all across the county on what they're seeing on a daily basis in terms of projects that they would like to see move forward based on their experiences in the driving around the county. So I think that's a benefit, but not to say that additional information isn't helpful too. Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, 2 points regarding congestion. I haven't looked at it recently, but I don't know if I think just showing a level of service or adopted might be a little too, not really tell the whole story. And I think the congestion management system report that Compass is required to do might also be provided at a more holistic, where they have the real severe congestion versus just congestion that unfortunately we just have to live with, but like that kind of hierarchy of congestion to me would be maybe more useful for the public and it also introduce that report to more people. And then second, I need to remind myself, but I would also like to look at the implementation recommendations in the Regional Safety Action Plan to see if there's something that we should focus on. I know there were specific recommendations to ACHD, but to see how that translates to the 5-year plan. That's all.
Madam President, and maybe recognizing, that I really think maybe a balance in this could be that these are tools that we make sure we reference and share with our partner agencies, who have more technical staff who are looking at that and creating their prioritization. I do think that the goal of this map is to kind of crowdsource data in terms of people's experience, but I do think that having the tools all in a place where people could access them is reasonable, that we could pull together.
And we'll make sure to, as we set up the one-on-one meetings with each of the partner agencies, we'll share all those resources that the commission has mentioned.
Oh, yeah, one other thing that might be helpful is we work with the different neighborhood groups. We always try to channel them to their partner agency. And so it might be helpful to know when the partner agencies are gonna make their or drop their priority list. Typically, the governing board approves that list. And so knowing when that would be helpful. I'm not sure. It's like when people have their budget adoptions, the assessor lets everybody know when those dates are. But when we do know that, it would be helpful to somehow communicate that to.
Do we have a deadline for
Yeah.
neighborhood associations to weigh in? Is it the same as the public or the partner agency one?
The public.
Yeah. Sometimes we get conflicting priorities, so I was just trying to strictly inform them of when it would be helpful to get them to their partner agency.
So that would
Yeah.
be by
Earlier,
February
typically.
19th, then we're
Yeah.
expecting partner agency, or I mean, neighborhood associations and. Okay.
My interesting concerns, yes, so, February, 19 is when we're expecting the public to provide, any feedback that they have with respect to the partner agencies and their dates. It's up to each of the cities to decide when they present those lists to their elected officials. So it's hard to pinpoint those dates exactly for the public to be informed about, but certainly, we share any information we receive to our partner agencies as soon as we receive them through this process, or even getting closer to their due date, to their mid-March date. We certainly follow up with them, make sure to address any questions, concerns. We work very closely with their staff at that level to share any feedback, and similar to what you mentioned regarding level congestion and so on, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Sorry. We will share any additional information. Also, we are also presenting to, for example, the Marine Transportation Commission in the coming months, and that's something that we've coordinated with them closely.
Is that all for your?
No.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. One more slide.
Well, that's.
So in your packet, we included a key dates and milestone for the commission to see what the timeline looks like. We're, like I mentioned, working with our partners for those one-on-one meetings. In coordination with the budget, that's something that we closely work with them as we get into the initial draft of the plan. That takes place July, August, and for this year, we're aiming to adopt 2% to the public a draft of this year's update in September 9th with a adoption consideration for the commission by September 23rd. Those are dates that certainly we're aiming for. Certainly as time goes on, the schedule can be refined, but that's what our goals are at this moment in time. And with that, Commission, conclude my presentation, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Edmondson. Any other questions for Edmondson? Commissioner Nelson?
No,
Oh, okay.
I appreciate the work. It's never ending.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Edmondson.
All right, next up, we've got our second work session, fiber deployment and ACHD right-of-way presentation by Justin.
Madam President, members of the commission, for the record, Justin Lucas, Chief of Operations and Infrastructure here at the Highway District. Today to talk about fiber deployment and ACHD's right-of-way. Kind of a hot topic right now, and has been a hot topic for, I think, several years, as we have seen different providers and come into the valley seeking to expand access to fiber telecommunications and internet to the home. I think it's fair to say that our, the Treasure Valley, specifically Ada County, is unique, somewhat limited in access to fiber broadband. I know we've heard that from our partners, and I think that reality plays into this discussion somewhat. Today, I'll be focusing on staff's kind of the state of play and where we can go from here under the commission's direction, because we really want to make sure this is a transparent process. Anytime we're looking at potentially changing standards, modifying things, we want to make sure the commission has all the relevant information. So kind of hit this topic already. I'll move on to the next slide. One thing that's really kind of hitting us right now is increasing requests to allow alternative fiber deployment methods. And it's not just one method, it's multiple different methods that are being requested. And I think this isn't a new topic for the commission. Several years ago, there was a pilot from Crown Castle, who spoke right before this meeting, of the nano trench or the rapid connect. They've modified their approach a little bit now and are requesting more of that. That pilot didn't actually kind of fulfill its full purpose because there was the overall plan that Crown Castle had at that time didn't work out. And so they essentially abandoned those facilities and moved in a different direction. Now they're coming back with, I think, a different, slightly different methodology. We're also, we also have had a few presentations on micro trenching in front of the commission and specific requests associated with that. And most recently, we're having other requests come in, which I'll get into today. And so staff, as we're trying to manage all this, it's a little difficult to see how all this works together. And we want to make sure that we're being conscientious and fair as we work through this. These requests, though, largely, and I think over time and in future presentations, it's likely you'll have the companies speak for themselves. But it's pretty clear to staff that faster deployment of the fiber is a key consideration for the providers. They'd like to move faster through the neighborhoods. They want to be able to provide the service to as many people they can as quickly as possible. And that seems to be the main driver here. I think with faster deployment, there's a likelihood of reduced neighborhood disruption, because if you can move faster through the neighborhood, there's less, I would say, initial impacts.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yeah, quick question. I think it's appropriate to interject right here. Yeah, everybody wants to go in and they might want to do it fast. They might not care. We've had the don't care already experienced. But then one gets through, then another one wants to come in and dig it up again. And then another one wants to come in, dig it up again, or put the fiber wherever. They all seem to want to compete for the same neighborhoods. And yet there's an incredibly huge percentage of the county that's completely ignored. I'd be really happy if when somebody wanted to come into one particular area, that it was opened up to everyone. And if they didn't want to participate, then maybe they got to wait another 5 years or something. Because it's just, it's just one request after another request after another, one disruption of the right of way after another. Just, it doesn't work out well for the Ada County taxpayers.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I think that's one of the concerns that staff has, and it's why we're having this work session today, is to kind of walk through some of those issues, listen to that kind of feedback from the commission, and if and when we move forward with alternative deployment methods, make sure that we have standards and procedures that help try to avoid all of that if we can. But it's difficult, and that's why I want to be transparent today. These are difficult issues, and when you open up the aperture and you have one provider, the other provider makes a claim of fairness, and if you're allowing them to do this, I should be able to do this. And those are the kinds of conversations that we found ourselves in as we worked through this, and I'll get into it a little bit more today. Just wanted to, establish ACHD's role. I don't need to go all through this, and this as the commissioners, but it's really, we need to protect the right of way. We need to protect the public's investment. We're a unique agency in how we were created in our jurisdiction and our focus on transportation and the right of way. When these types of requests run through different jurisdictions, more general purpose jurisdictions like cities, I think the policy considerations may be a little different than how we look at it at ACHD, but that's the reality of who we are as staff. And it's hard for us we don't want to get out in front of the commission on the wisdom or the benefit of overall broadband to the community. That's more of a broad policy consideration. We want to stay focused on the right-of-way and the impacts on the right-of-way, not only in the short term, but the long term. And that's part of this conversation. So just to kind of level set on where we are today, we have a specific section related to fiber telecommunications infrastructure, section 6,000 of our policy. It goes into depth, quite a bit of depth on what's required for all of these different providers. Right now, to be totally clear, there is a lot of fiber being installed in Ada County under our current policy. Hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, most likely, I don't have the exact numbers, have been installed over the past, 5 to 10 years within Ada County. So it's not like there's no activity in Ada County on fiber installation. It's happening. Right now, within the right-of-way, we require a minimum depth of 30 inches. This is essentially an industry standard, and I looked across the United States. Burying utilities of any type deeper is an industry standard that has been in place for many, many years across the United States. The reason for that, it's a proven approach. It does lower the long-term risk to pavement and sidewalks, minimal conflicts with future maintenance activities. The shallower you go, the more likelihood of, the need to remove or relocate those facilities with some type of future maintenance activity or other utility installation activity that may happen. This approach for us, we've been able to establish some pretty consistent inspection and enforcement standards. And we do in our county, which is somewhat unique, we have established corridors for different utilities. And fiber specifically, we have established the south side of the road and the west side of the road to be the established corridors. And utilities, when they want to go outside of those corridors, we actually require by policy that they coordinate with the other utility companies that have those other corridors and get written approval if they want to do a parallel run within another utilities corridor from all those utility companies. And we think that's really worked. I think it encourages coordination and cooperation between the utility companies. In general, we get good feedback on that policy because it's consistent and it's fair and people know where they're supposed to be. I think I hit some of those why we've established this approach already. I do want to highlight, and I think it's fair, that no standard is perfect. And there are unique challenges with having to install fiber in this method through traditional trenching or boring. Traditional trenching is pretty invasive. You have to bring out an excavator, typically if you're doing a parallel run in the right-of-way, and you're digging a trench within the right-of-way, either a transverse trench or a parallel trench, to get deep enough to install that fiber at 30 inches. What you get, though, with that is full compaction of the material that goes back in and then a full reconstruction of the utility patch, essentially, for that asphalt. So that's kind of the standard that we've established over all these years. But it's disruptive and it takes a long time. And I think that's a fair, you want to call it a criticism of our policy, is it's intense to get these facilities installed. So what happens is, the fiber companies today have options. It's not like every piece of fiber laid in our county is laid underneath asphalt. It's actually not the case at all. There's a 2-foot utility easement behind the sidewalk. That utility easement is accessible for fiber companies. Within the right-of-way, we still do require it to be 30 inches deep. Boring within those utility easements, the boring, which is essentially a method of going underneath the ground and pushing forward or drilling forward at that depth of 30 inches and then pulling the conduit behind it. And then the fiber is installed within that conduit. Very common within Ada County. Also, we've seen some fiber companies take advantage of other public utility easements outside of the right-of-way. ACHD doesn't govern those easements, but if you look at a typical plat, there's a 10-foot general public utility easement on the front of every lot, and typically on the back of every lot, there's a 10-foot utility easement. Often used by kind of the more traditional companies, cable providers, telecommunication providers, telephone providers historically have accessed those utility easements. There's a lot of irrigation also within those utility easements. And ACHD, when fiber goes in outside the right-of-way, obviously, it's touching the right of way one way or the other to cross and things like that, but we don't get involved in regulating depths outside of the right of way. And so we've seen fiber companies attempt to use those easements also. We encourage that. It brings its own challenges. You can imagine when the deeper you go into someone's front yard, the more complicated the problem is for that property owner. And then if you get into the backyards, you have similar issues with a lot of conflicts. But there's conflicts within the right of way also. So this is kind of where we're at today. And there's, as I say, things are moving forward. We are allowing and permitting a lot of fiber installations across the county from various installers. I think we have additional companies that aren't in the market who want to enter the market. And some of them have specific methodologies that they prefer to use to enter the market. And it seems, based on those conversations, some companies, if they don't have their preferred installation method, it's unlikely they would choose to enter the market, which is interesting. And why there's, I guess, pressure for us to look at some of these other methods. So kind of hit on these, and I think it's I think it's important to highlight this because I don't want this to be a one-sided story. There are benefits to this. Whether those benefits are more geared towards the company and maybe the citizen in the short term versus the long term, I think is where staff is trying to balance this and find that right spot. And it's challenging sometimes because it's hard to know. Some of these methods aren't necessarily tested for the long term. They don't have necessarily a huge track record. Some of them have a longer track record than others, but there's not a lot of data related to some of these requests on the national level. And also ACHD has unique pavements. We are aggressive chip sealers in this community. And so some of the methods, depending on the roadway itself and the history of the maintenance on that roadway, may work better depending on the road itself. And that's all part of this nuanced conversation. So I wanted to highlight 3 today. These are the active kind of conversations that we're in on the different deployment methods that we're receiving active requests on. I'm not going to use specific company names today. You may have heard things. For the purposes of this presentation, I try to avoid that I'm not trying to point fingers, play favorites. This is just installation method. These installation methods could be used by, I think, different companies. Some of them may have some proprietary aspect to them, and I'm not going to get into all that today, but this is the 3 I wanted to focus on. Micro trenching, for those who haven't seen presentations on that, it's essentially a narrow saw cut in the pavement. We would still consider it a trench. It's just an extremely narrow trench, and that trench is cut with a blade. That essentially cuts through the pavement, cuts into those base layers, and then a conduit and fiber is installed within that conduit. I'm just going to say approximately 12 inches below the surface. There's different ways to do it. There's different depths, but for the purposes of today, it's about a foot below the surface. There's different ways to do this. These cuts can happen at the edge of pavement, which I think is what's most likely the largest request for Ada County right now, but these cuts could really occur anywhere within the pavement. Let's say that first 3 feet from the lip of gutter, you could have a micro trench request to install the fiber. Pretty fast. They can lay a lot of fiber using this methodology. And one of the things that you get into with these types of methodologies is it really reduces the spoils, or when you're removing less material, you don't have to then replace that material, dispose of that material. And so micro trenching allows you to move faster because you're not going as deep. You can lay that conduit in pretty fast. The fill material they use is essentially like a flowable concrete. So it goes in pretty liquidy, backfills the micro trench, hardens over a period of time, and then in some instances is covered then by what is mastic. It's like a crack seal material, specialized crack seal material. So what you're left with would be the trench backfilled with a cementous material and then covered with a crack seal material. I think the long runs right at the lip of gutter are pretty straightforward. When you start to encounter obstacles or you have to deviate, I think it gets a little bit more complicated on the restoration requirements. I'll pause there to see if you have any questions about that. Shallow boring, micro drilling, this is essentially similar to the methods that are being used today, but the boring depth itself is just less. The equipment oftentimes can be smaller and it can be a little bit faster depending on the depth you're at. And so this, we've seen requests so far, boring depths anywhere between 8 and 24 inches. Some of the boring depth question becomes interesting of, do we allow different boring depths like behind the sidewalk and that softscape and the 2-foot utility easement versus underneath the roadway? I think staff is pretty sensitive about the roadway cross-section itself. And when you bore directly into base material, I think there's some concern about reflection of that bore upwards or potentially dislocating material and having future issues. And we have seen that. Even at depths of 30 inches, we have seen it reflect all the way up and create issues in the pavement layer 30 inches above. And so I think our concerns there are based on just the reality of boring and how it works. But these are the requests that we're seeing, and I think some of the justification behind that. Nano trenching or surface level installation, and you heard from Crown Castle just right before my presentation on this type of installation. This is essentially a channel, a very small channel directly within the pavement, and there's no conduit typically installed. The fiber itself is is directly laid into the roadway. And so there's different methods that have been used historically to backfill. There was a tape product that was used. The current request that we're looking at, it's a gasket material. So it's like a rubberized gasket material that is embedded above the fiber to hold the fiber down, and it essentially creates a seal. This is, extremely fast installation. Once again, I think the devil's in the details sometimes about what do you do with it? How do you get it across the sidewalk? What do you do in kind of non-standard situations where you just don't have a straight line? This is probably not best installed right at the edge of the pavement. It probably needs to be out within the pavement itself, because you want a clean cut so that that gasket is embedded in there correctly and will hold. So, but very fast when it comes to installation. So, this is what we're trying to work through as a staff. I think there's consideration and incentives that we have to look at. I think it's fair to say that the companies, these are private companies looking for customers and to make money. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. And so the rapid deployment, the lower upfront costs, I think benefit the company to be able to get into market and get going forward. What staff's trying to do is balance those benefits with what we see as potential risk for the highway district when it comes to ADA compliance, future maintenance issues that may occur, and how do we do that? And it's hard. I wish I could say we had the perfect answer. We really don't. We have a method. We have a policy that allows fiber installation in a certain way. We do not have to change our policy or allow these other alternative methods. Really, it's up to the commission to decide if this is something you want us to consider at the staff level. We've done our best to learn as much as we can about all these different methods. I think it's fair to say there's some pros and cons. But one of the realities, what we've seen with other companies as they've come into market, is we've seen and heard a lot of great intentions, but the contractors that they select or subcontractors oftentimes aren't necessarily able to live up to the quality standards that even the company might desire. And so when you get this many contractors laying this amount of fiber, we have seen quality issues when it comes to that. And it's a concern, and I know it's a concern of the commission because we've received a lot of public feedback about previous failures in this area. So that's kind of what we're working through. And go ahead, sir.
And I just want to be fair. I've, in conversations with these companies who've had expressed some concerns about one method or another, I've tried to encourage them to propose some of these ideas. And so that's where I think part of why we're here is because we have seen a lot of frustration by the public, a lot of concerns by the public, and even in some cases where they're going into fairly new neighborhoods, and the neighborhood's then torn up, and those things are challenging from our perspective too. And so that's why we're encouraging ideas. We just want to balance when we do this and have a fair and open conversation about when we allow these things and where we allow these things. So that everyone understands the risks associated with this.
Thank you, sir. So I think these are the kind of, we're at a touch point now with the commission as we've had various discussions over the years. We just wanted to level check today, make sure that staff doesn't get out in front of the commission on this with kind of continuing to pursue this. You know, should ACHD allow these alternative deployment methods? I think is one of the key questions that we have. A lot of other communities, not only, you know, nationally, but within the state of Idaho are looking at this. Pocatello, for example, is allowing microtrenching right now, and other communities within the state of Idaho. Across the Northwest, there's, I think all of these methods are being used in one way or another, either through a pilot, limited use, or in some cases, broad use within those communities. So I'll just pause there. And just kind of level check from the commission, see if you have any thoughts here. You don't have to have a strong opinion. We can continue to kind of bring these things through piecemeal, but I just wanted to pause at that point.
Let's back off one slide. That green part, you need to double the font size, make it all caps. And on the right-hand side, as far as what we need to worry about, make it so you have to use a microscope to read it.
Commissioner,
President.
Commissioner Pickering, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for taking the initiative and touching base with us. I really appreciate it. I also really appreciate that we're trying to be clear about the things that we're considering around these trade-offs, because I think clarity and transparency is going to help us. If there are other aspects of our policy that we need to adjust, I think it has to fit within these considerations first. And so I think being clear with private partners that this is the North Star. I think that helps us get to a solution that does work for us. I would just say, you know, I want to echo Commissioner Goldthorpe's sentiments. You know, it was really, I mean, I hate saying this, but it was quite traumatic seeing the pictures of fiber disrupting so many people's homes and yards over the last few years. And I really feel for our constituents and the confusion that it causes. I think the other thing that I'm looking for is, you know, obviously fiber is super important to the connectivity and health and vibrancy of our economy and our communities. So I understand the value of why this technology and this infrastructure is so important, especially as we continue to grow. That being said, I think I'm also going to be wanting to understand the costs. And I know that, Justin, you had mentioned that we don't really quite know the long-term impact of each of these treatments. But I think I want to understand, you know, because the thing I want to avoid is shifting costs from one sector to us, right? Especially as we're responsible to taxpayers. We have to maintain the quality of our pavement. The buck stops with us. So what is the right mix of that fiscal accountability and value, along with, you know, what's the right amount of flexibility and trust with some other private partners. So that's the other thing that I'm looking for, Justin. I know that might be complicated to understand the fiscal impacts of different things when we don't really know the forecast, but I think is if we can at least understand them from other examples across the country, that would be great.
Commissioner Nielsen.
You know, take a little higher altitude view of just broadband access. And as a public agency, our partners at the cities, I think it'd be good to look at what policies exist with our partner cities around Ada County in terms of promoting broadband. How do they see it? actually happening. It's one thing to have a policy and, actually implementing it. We're a piece of that, if they're getting it through plats or through other development approvals, it's good to know. I'd want to know, Justin, if it's possible, if permitting is that, something that can be mapped of, where is this activity? And I think we probably, we've seen such a change since the pandemic of people working from home, remote education, all of that. So in as much as there is a transportation component to it, versus just using our pavement, that there is that connectivity that promotes, or that preserves capacity maybe on the roadway, but I would be most concerned of understanding where are underserved or unserved areas of the county. And we might have a policy differences or standards or decision-making frameworks if it's an unserved or underserved area versus, the third provider in the same area. So just knowing, I would think that somebody has that information of what's served or underserved. Because I was even surprised, we had to change providers because we literally could not get 5G in my neighborhood, Southeast Boise.
You should live where I live.
It was just not possible. And I was like, really? And we have benches, we have things that, interfere with some of these, being able to be connected. And I just think that I just want to have a better understanding of where those areas around the county are. And that might help structure a policy, so.
Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. I have 3 questions. Question number 1, did we not authorize a micro trenching test project a couple of years back? What were the results of that? What did we learn from that?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, we've gone back and forth on the potential for some kind of pilot or demonstration project related to micro trenching in Ada County. It ended up never happening, so there has been no micro trench pilot or demonstration within Ada County. We did have a presentation. We've, kind of started talking specifically on micro trenching, doing the research, putting together even potential draft, requirements. And at that same time, we started getting other requests for other types of alternative deployment, which I think caused us to pause and go, okay, how does all this work together? Which is why we're here today. It's really, when it comes to alternative deployment, there's, I think, different ways to approach this, right? Is it one method? Is it multiple methods? How do we want to do that? And is it different methods based on different pavement characteristics or geographic locations? We could go all those different directions, but as we go down that road, I think it's just, it's a lot to put our arms around. And once we say go, it goes fast. This happens real fast, and we're gonna have to be ready from an inspection perspective to manage that.
Well, and that kind of leads to my second question, because if we did approve some sort of micro trenching method, where they're putting cables, 1 to 2 inches deep, in our pavement, that would strike me that when the day comes to mill and overlay that pavement, now we'll be ripping out cable because, if it's less than 2 inches deep, any milling operation is going to rip that out. Now, would we have potential liability for the cable companies, the service provider, as well as, a lot of residents who would not be happy with their connection being cut off. So that's kind of question number 2. And I don't know if it's so much of a question as an observation, but it strikes me as a major potential problem for any kind of micro trenching proposal. And then kind of number 3, it sounds like different providers are coming in wanting to do these things, and we could end up with, 3 or 4 cables in any given street. Could we not? That sounds like just a recipe for chaos. Back in the early days of electrification, different electric companies were trying to put up their lines, and you have some places where you had 5 different electric companies, and overhead wires were just, you can find old photographs from early 1900s of city streets with 80 gazillion wires stretching everywhere from different phone companies and different electric companies and so on. And of course, we don't want that kind of chaos. And so that's also a major consideration in my mind for approving anything in this direction. So we need to be really careful in that.
Yeah, and Commissioner McKay, thanks for bringing that up, and I'll go ahead and respond to the idea of, future conflict. Any utility provider who locates a facility within our right of way is responsible to work with us through the maintenance process to relocate or remove that facility. All of the providers, are typically good about that. So I think that risk is there. It is a further complication of any project, right? If you go out and look at an ACHD project, and we hear this all the time, the first 3 or 4 months of an ACHD project is just a utility project. It really is what we're doing. Once we pull off that pavement and we do our thing, all the utility companies jump in and are doing a lot of work in that first, project window. And we hear that all the time. Well, why aren't you moving faster? Well, these are contractors that aren't under our control, and this is all part of that process. So I think it's a concern, but the fiber companies would be responsible by policy for, to make sure that they relocate or remove those facilities when we come through with a maintenance project.
I'm very, very well aware of. Where I have seen us have some interesting tussles, including in courtrooms before, has been who pays for it. And I remember when Steve came to us in a meeting, whether it was executive session or something, I can't remember, but he was gleefully expressing the settlement that we had with who paid for what, when with Idaho Power. Remember that, Steve?
Oh, yeah. What a none.
And I can see that having to happen 20 more times with 20 different, fiber optic providers or whoever. And that I think we can avoid that 100%.
So commissioners, we're walking through this. I think what I'm hearing today is not necessarily and absolutely not. It's you want more information, totally fair. And kind of a cautious phase consideration of alternative methods, I think is what staff would, at the commission's direction, what we'd like to walk through with you. It takes time, and I know there's pressure from the companies to move quickly and they want to get their fiscal year plan set and all that. I can't commit to any specific time frame. I can commit that I have, we're spending time on this as staff. We'll continue to bring this forward. We're going to try and establish a process to walk through this. But we want to be somewhat cautious before we jump right in and allow, let's say, a broad deployment of a new method without having all of our ducks in a row. So I throw this up, and I do think it's important, and it's something that you're likely to hear from the different companies and maybe even current providers, as we go through this conversation. This idea of fairness and consistency, and I think it's fair that we need to be fair. We need to be consistent. If we're going to allow methods for one company, those methods should be available for all companies. And I think that's ACHD's commitment. Some of the methods may be proprietary and outside of our control, whether a company has access to it or not, but I don't think that's necessarily our concern. It's just making sure that our processes and procedures allow for that fairness within the marketplace. We've talked a lot about this idea of multiple methods in the same corridor. And this is one thing that I'm trying to figure out is, we have a fiber installer go in and they're there, and let's say they use traditional trenching or boring. On top of that, we have a micro trench. Adjacent to that micro trench, we have a nano trench. And then we have a provider who wants to come in and do a shallow bore. And I don't know if that's a sustainable way to approach this. I mentioned co-location and cooperation as an idea. And I think other agencies have tried to look at this. This goes into that idea of dig once, which the commission has talked about in the past. What we've seen so far in our conversations with the providers is very little interest in that. And the reason being is they're putting in, capital infrastructure. They're making a pretty big investment. And for us to then require them essentially to allow a competitor to use the conduit that they just installed, their immediate question is, well, how am I compensated for that? Or I don't want to do that. And it gets into, I think, a pretty difficult situation for ACHD to require that or not. What we can do is say things like, once there's one alternative method in, we're just going to stop and not allow another alternative method. We can get into that level of detail. But I think when it gets into co-location, I think it's a great thing to talk about. Based on my conversation so far, I just don't think it's feasible. I don't think the providers are really that interested in that, unless it's where we've seen some success there nationally is the city or jurisdiction puts in the conduit. They own it and then lease out portions or all of that conduit to providers. That has happened in some instances, but ACHD has never taken that approach. And for us, that would be a pretty significant change and a large capital investment to start investing in conduit that goes in with all of these new subdivisions or with our maintenance projects that may or may not be used in the future. And so that's something we're working through. I want to be transparent on that because I think ideally it's like, oh yeah, you have the conduit going once and they all run in the same conduit. That is just not how it's playing out nationally. And it's very likely that you're going to have multiple providers.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yeah, and I've given some thought to that too, and it's not like I'm laughing it off, but there has to be some kind of singing kumbaya with each other or getting things done in fairly similar fashion and fairly similar timelines, or we just create all kinds of problems for ourselves. But to do what this co-locations thing, because of the potential for problems, I wish there was somewhere in the United States where some judge had already settled this. Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around and maybe the council could send me some more refreshers on the Telecommunications Act, because I know with cell towers, you can incentivize co-location. And so I just trying to translate that to fiber. How would you incentivize it?
Yeah.
Or if we decide to amend the policy manual, what would that look like? So I'll give that a lot of thought, but I might need some refreshers on that. Is that 30 years old this year?
98.
Oh, 98, okay.
Our policies, ordinances in the city of Boise are really good about that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson.
Madam President, I tend to think of, obviously, we've discussed trade-offs of some type of evaluation matrix. I saw the outlines of that here, kind of the pros and cons to the district, but also to the public benefit as well. If there's a way to articulate that through the underserved areas of the county, for example, schools, other areas where we need to be, I don't want to say embrace, look at how do we need to adapt because of new products or new technologies. So for the benefit of employers, students, general public, for our customers, so.
Madam President, one of the things that I think is also important that we're looking at here, in most cases, our standard methodologies for our mainline roads are not necessarily where concerns are. Yeah. It's the fiber to home. Yeah. It's that last mile of getting it into the residential neighborhoods where we're getting a lot of the pressure. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to, I think that's could be part of a matrix in terms of what we allow or where we allow it. Yeah. It's that certain conditions must exist before we would consider it.
Well, based on this feedback today, and thank you, commissioners, for taking the time. I know this is kind of a nuanced and can be a technical topic, but staff with the commission always wants to make sure we're being as transparent as possible. In summary, our current policy is based on industry standards. We think it is working pretty well and will continue being used by fiber providers. Today, there's permits being issued to install fiber within Ada County. So I don't want it to seem like it's not happening because it is. And along with that comes some challenges. We recognize the alternative methods will have the potential to accelerate fiber deployment, but I think there's some unknowns as we've discussed at length today that we'll have to manage. So kind of next steps and under the direction of commission, we will probably bring forward some more kind of technical considerations here. Some of the things we've discussed today, I will probably consolidate into a subsequent presentation where we dig a little bit deeper on this and kind of see if we can get to some forward movement on this. You know, there's this question right now, we have options. We have our policy, but through a license agreement, the commission has broad discretion. So you're able to apply policy, or let's say there's a specific provider with a specific request, and we've done this in the past. You can then enter into a specific license agreement with that provider. And included with that license agreement, you may allow for alternative installation methods. So we haven't totally landed on that yet, but I just wanted to let you know there's options there on how to move forward. I also want to highlight this, and I think it's really important, and we sent out this work session to every other utility company within Ada County and as many fiber providers that currently exist or other telecommunications providers that we can. There's high interest in this topic. You know, from all sides. And I think it's, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to hear all of those different opinions as you're making your decisions. And I think it's good that you hear them. The incentive structure behind that, over to you to kind of interpret some of that feedback. But it's certainly a high interest topic, and we want to make sure that this is all being done in a way that the kind of more traditional utility providers, power and gas, that have facilities everywhere all the time, water, sewer, they're deeper, it's a little less of a conflict, but specifically power, gas, and then other telecommunications providers have shown interest in this. Water in some extents too, their utilities get struck when other utilities go in on top of them, and we've had those issues happen. So it's just making sure that everyone has a chance to weigh in and you hear all the different opinions as you make these decisions. So I think that's how we'll move forward. More to come on this topic, but wanted to provide this today and make sure you have this touch point as we navigate through this.
Justin, I'll just say, I really want to thank you for bringing this forward and giving this overview and working with all of the different requests over time and sharing all of this with the commission. This is obviously a complex topic with lots of different pieces to consider. And so appreciate you trying to work through all of that and work with the commission on solutions. I'll kind of just touch on a couple of things that were said before that I think that I would like to see as well. We've obviously got partner agency interest in this as well, wanting to kind of address some of the underserved areas in the various cities. And so I'm wondering if, you know, we can incorporate that conversation with partner agencies about kind of their thoughts on where, how, why, and just, you know, bring that into our overall assessment and consideration. And then, yeah, I just want to reiterate that obviously our obligation is to protect the public assets in the right of way and being mindful of those costs and not shifting that burden onto the agency, onto the district and taxpayers. So how, you know, however you can collect that information and help provide it going forward as well. And then I'm wondering if there's any kind of longitudinal data from other jurisdictions that have incorporated any of these things. I know some technologies or approaches are newer than others, and so there might be more data associated with one over another. And I know that, as you mentioned, other cities in Idaho are starting to implement some of these. And so if there's, you know, that kind of information that we can collect and help inform us going forward as well. Commissioner Nelson?
Yeah, this is a final thought, listening to Madam President, and it's one of those topics, Justin, that you probably woke up and said, I guess I'm gonna have to be a fiber expert now, right?
He's done really well.
He's done extraordinary, but you know, I would say open to, and this is just for the director, if we have budget, if we need to hire some expertise in this area to help with public engagement and evaluation of alternatives, that's something I would be open to. We just heard about doing the 5-year plan now, and there's a lot on the plates there. So I don't know who that would be, or you know, but it's it's such a focused, highly technical topic with legal issues as well that, with our savings from, salt and whatever thing, is due to the mild winter maybe.
Knock on wood, Commissioner. Knock on wood.
I
Not
we
done
just
yet.
changed
Not
it.
done
It's
yet.
starting in no place. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, so.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Justin. I really appreciate the information. Yeah, and that's all on the agenda today, so we will see everybody next week.